The Seventh Guest is an over 20-year-old game that still has the same effect as it did when it came out in 1993 when it was released by Trilobite for the PC. I ended up playing the game on the iOS version, but I can't lie, this game is still as awesome as I know it was back in the day. For those of you who don't know, The Seventh Guest is an interactive movie puzzle adventure game, and it was one of the first computer games to be released only on CD-ROM. The game is more of a horror story than anything, but it includes a lot of little puzzles, not unlike Professor Layton, and it was an absolutely huge hit at the time for the huge leaps it made in both graphics and presentation. Let's start with the story. The game's story follows Old Man Stoff, who built a house and filled it with his toys. Who's Old Man Stoff? Well, the story is set in 1935, and a drifter named Henry Stauff, who has nothing to his name, murders a woman and steals her purse, sinking lower and lower. One night, he dreams of a beautiful doll, and seeing this as a vision, carves the doll exactly as he saw it in his dream. Taking the doll to a local tavern, Stoff manages to make a successful transaction with the bartender, the doll for food and drink, and a place to stay. The first of many such transactions. Soon after, he has another vision. Puzzles and board games, which he again creates exactly as he saw. Now, very successful, Stoff sets up a toy shop and continues to sell his creations, which become more and more popular. However, at the height of his success, some of the children who own his dolls come down with a mysterious incurable illness and begin dying. Meanwhile, guided by another final vision, Stoff built a mansion on the edge of town, a strange house that, quote, scared people, after which he disappeared from the public view. Sometime after the outbreak of the mysterious illness, 6 guests are invited to stay in Stoff's mansion. When they arrive, they find no sign of Stoff, but an array of puzzles filling the house, and a declaration by Stoff that the guest who solves his puzzles will be granted his or her greatest desire. It's up to the player to wander around the mansion and figure out what's going on. The plot of the game is a simple, creepy little tale, but it's ultimately pretty rewarding and compelling in its simplicity. It's really smart storytelling in that it really takes its time to flesh out the story and the characters, and it stays mysterious, sinister, but also a little playful too. I have to say that the acting in this game is really painful, but in like the memorable, hilarious way.
I expected more, Mr. Stuff.
It's like a preschooler play where you're trying not to laugh, but you can't help see how ridiculous this is. Like, these people got paid to do this. That's sad. However, that's just the acting that's ridiculous. The actual location and story and some of the plot points are actually very creepy and even freaking scary at some points. There are some jump scares, but really, the game has a genuinely unsettling tone and location, which is a strange juxtaposition with this goofy acting. Usually I shy away from these kinds of games, but because it's like 20 years old and it has all these goofy moments, it encouraged me to keep going and not be such a pussy when I played this game. All in all, playing it now, it's a simple, fairy tale-ish story with charm, scares, and it's just plain memorable. The puzzles in this game are the meat and potatoes, and it's kind of a mixed bag for me. I think puzzle games in general are really hard to pull off because some people will find certain puzzles way harder than other people will. Personally, I prefer logic puzzles, or clever puzzles where you have to look at things from a different angle, like in the Phoenix Wright series or some of the 999 puzzles. However, in this game, there's a lot of spatial puzzles. And what I mean by that are chessboard pieces where you have to move one chessboard piece aside to another. There's a lot of chess going on in this game. There's a lot of puzzles that are focused on words and different mazes and stuff, and they're pretty fresh and varied. though some are really rough. Again, some of those chess puzzles gave me fits, especially when you're playing them on the little iPhone screen. I really recommend playing this on an iPad or just on the computer, perhaps Steam or something. The good thing about the game though is that you can skip a lot of the puzzles if you need to, and the game offers a pretty good hint system in the iOS version at least. But really, you'll want to complete all the puzzles because you get to see a lot of interesting cutscenes that flesh out the story and make things a lot more interesting. Still, the puzzles were really fun, and what I really appreciated about them was that they stuck to the tone of the story. Like, for example, there's one point in the game where you're wandering around the mansion and you end up going through these tunnels. You're working your way through this crypt, and I kind of like that, how the game kind of mixes puzzles and navigation. You're not just, oh look, here's a puzzle, and then it pops up. It feels kind of integrated with what you're doing, which is looking around the mansion and trying to figure out what's going on. And I really appreciated that. All in all, the puzzles were pretty good for the time, and they still hold out now, though they're definitely pretty frustrating at some points, unless you're really on point. But again, there's hints and you can always use a walkthrough. The graphics in this game are pretty outstanding. I would go as far to say that this is the reason why you should play this game. Not necessarily for the puzzles, but for the story and presentation. For some reason, even though I never played this game as a kid and I only played it recently, it still really sticks in my mind. Especially the whole lobby entrance scene and some particular parts of the mansion. It's one of those games like Myst that really nails the atmospheric touches, and it's a game that you really can't get out of your mind. There's a lot of really creepy imagery, small little touches, a lot of little things to click on and explore. It's so fun to just walk around this mansion, but it's also a source of anxiety and fear sometimes. But it's a good mix. It's not too stressful like in some horror games, but it's enough for you to be creeped out just beyond the point of no return, if you guys know what I mean. I don't know if I'm explaining this right. All in all, the graphics are pretty freaking good in this game. I love the design, though the acting is hilariously bad, but you know what, that's actually probably a plus in my book. The music in the game is really well done. It's kind of strange at some points, like some of the instruments they use, but you kind of get it. It's a game about strangeness and putting you out of your comfort zone and unsettling music. It's a really good soundtrack, it's varied, and it doesn't really get annoying, which is a problem you'll have in some puzzle games where you'll be listening to the same music a lot. The sound effects in this game are also fantastic. This is a game you really have to play like around Halloween, or at least when you're home alone in the dark. It's fantastic for that. It'll get you going, honestly. In conclusion, The Seventh Guest, despite being 20 years old, really still holds out to me. Like Myst, it's really a game where it's about the atmosphere rather than the puzzles. Well, at least the atmosphere is what you'll probably be taking away from it, and the puzzles will probably make you pretty upset. Still, it's not too hard of a game to complete. It honestly doesn't even take that long to beat, and there's a lot of different platforms for you to pick it up and play. Honestly, if you've never played this one before, I recommend giving it a shot, even if it is on the iOS version. It's not too expensive, and I'd say it's worth the price. If anything, you'll be getting to look at one of the most famous games of all time, and there's nothing wrong with that. In any case, give it a shot. Thanks for watching.